Welcome. In this program, we'll share exciting highlights from the 2025 Service Year Report.
Yup, the numbers are out, or at least the numbers that this religion thinks it makes them look well. The service report tracks the Jehovah's Witness activity all across the globe, although with zero transparency on accuracy or on the guidelines they use to get the numbers they show us, it's impossible to know just how accurate they are. However, they cannot be that inflated because here are the highlighted numbers of the recent international convention.
On October 24th through 26th, 2025, a special convention was held in Kobe, Japan. Over 3,000 delegates attended from 35 countries. The peak attendance was 22,591. A highlight was the baptism of 93 new brothers and sisters.
Okay, so the peak attendance was of 22,000, and the highlight, as he pointed out, was the baptizing of 93 people. These numbers show us that they must not lie that much with numbers, because these numbers are terrible. Let's compare them to their own numbers of a different international convention. This one, in Kyiv, back in 1993. This one had an attendance of well over 60,000 people, almost triple of the attendance of this year's Japan's international convention. But that's not the main point. After all, this could have just been a larger venue or something. The important thing was that although they had triple the attendance, they didn't have triple the number of baptized people, which would have been 300 people. But no. They didn't baptize 300 people. They didn't baptize 3,000 people. They baptized 7,402 people in that convention. That is more by like an order and a half of magnitude. In 1993, over 12% of the attendance of one international convention were getting baptized. Now, in 2025, international conventions can even get 0.5% of attendees to get baptized. And this international convention was chosen as a highlight of the entire year. Even by their own numbers, this cult has lost the ability to convert others, leaving the governing body desperate for any outsider that is at least somewhat sympathetic to their religion.
Later, he brought a colleague and said, "These are the wonderful people I mentioned, well-dressed, courteous, and impressive." He said he might even attend the convention on his day off.
This is a story about a man who was so impressed by this cult that said he might even attend the convention. That's it. He didn't convert. He didn't get a Bible study. We don't even know if he actually attended the convention. But the fact that he said he might made this story so special that he's got a member of the governing body reading his story to all his followers. Was this truly the best story they had for the governing body? But after he mentions two hurricanes and how they've affected Jehovah's Witnesses and Jehovah's Witnesses only, instead of mentioning what his organization is doing to help them, he asks for your help.
Please continue to pray earnestly for those affected by disasters earth-wide. We're also deeply grateful for the many volunteers working to provide spiritual, physical, and material relief. And that includes all of you. Thank you for your prayers and your generous donations, which make this relief work possible.
The relief work is a lie. This religion does not do any charity work. Relief work means they send people to repair their own property, kingdom halls and assembly halls and the such. Sometimes, some of those people do end up repairing homes that were destroyed, but when that happens, it will be incidental and superficial help, and it will be directed exclusively towards members of the cult. And even then, members of the cult are usually asked to sign Jehovah's Witnesses as the contractors for their insurance. So Jehovah's Witnesses still get compensated. That's not relief work, that's just work. The governing body routinely uses every and any natural disaster affecting their property to ask for more money from their followers. The focus is never on what their religion can do. They have never even released the numbers of houses that they've rebuilt in even one of their relief efforts. The focus is on what you can do, which is giving money to this religion. Let's just get into the numbers already.
We rejoiced to see an average of 9,047,083 publishers. That represents a 2.5% increase. What's more, out of the 241 lands where we preach the good news, 96 reported all-time peaks in the number of publishers.
This sounds awesome if you don't know anything about statistics or if you don't think about this for more than half a second. Because only a third of the countries that reported these numbers experience more numbers than before. So, what is Glasses leaving out? That in 2/3 of the world, they've had fewer members than they have had in previous years. According to their own report, in most countries, they've had a decline in membership. They are shrinking. And maybe that's why they're focusing on trying to colonize the most remote and vulnerable populations in the world.
From July to August 2025, thousands of our brothers and sisters shared in the first ever preaching campaign in Zambia's Western Province. An estimated 1.3 million people live in this vast and beautiful region. For many people who live in remote areas of the province, this was their first opportunity to hear the Bible's message. What was the result? During the campaign, over 24,500 people requested a Bible study. Isn't that amazing? Truly, the fields are white for harvesting. In fact, worldwide, there was a 1.6% increase in the number of Bible studies conducted last service year.
He's amazed, and I don't think he's acting. To a dying organization, sending thousands of Jehovah's Witnesses to preach and each finding a couple of Bible studies is surprising because that just doesn't happen anymore. This resembles how they used to grow in the United States, Canada, and Europe like 100 years ago. But even in Latin American countries, where they experience more recent growth, this success just doesn't happen anymore. It can only happen when you flood the most remote areas of the world where they have no access to internet and barely any access to the outside world, that this cult can find people naive enough to ask to know more. That's what they've experienced, just a 1.5% increase in the number of Bible studies. And remember, many reported studies are doubled because it's the parents teaching their kids and reporting them separately as their own Bible studies. That's why he tucked it away at the end, because this number shows us just how much trouble this religion is in. Because this 1.5% doesn't even match the measly 2.3% increase he pointed to. If there are 2.3% more Jehovah's Witnesses out there than last year, but only 1.5% more Bible studies than last year, that means that the average Jehovah's Witness lost Bible studies. This is like basic math that you can only ignore if you're under mind control program, so you never think critically about anything the governing body tells you. Anyone actually listening to what cult Millhouse here is saying will clearly recognize this cult is losing the battle according to their own numbers. And these numbers are the highlights. Do you see how, even by their own account, they're shrinking already?
And it was heartwarming to see that 304,643 were baptized during the service year. This is a 2.8% increase over last year.
So there's baptizing and there's publishers, because remember, not every publisher gets to be baptized. And their publisher rate is just above the fertility rate. And this also shows another small trend towards shrinking, because although they had a 2.8% increase this year in baptism, they only had a 2.3% increase in publishers. And again, not every publisher will get baptized. And their memorial attendance is even worse.
And what about the memorial attendance? How encouraging that 20,635,015 attended the memorial. And 15 lands reported an all-time peak attendance.
Okay, so they got 20 million attendance to the memorial. That's pretty much the same number I remember since I was a kid, so no growth nor surprises there. But did you hear what he said last? Only 15 lands had peak attendance. That means in most of the almost 250 lands reporting, fewer people attended the memorial than they have historically attended before. The memorial is the most important event for the Jehovah's Witnesses, who spend all month delivering invitations to everyone they encounter in the door-to-door ministry. And yet, in over 200 countries, they have had more attendance in the past than they did this year. But to distract you from that, they have a branch representatives from cherry-picked countries telling you literally nothing but cherry-picked data.
In the country of Mexico, we reached a new peak of 879,024 publishers. And we also had a new peak of regular pioneers, more than 173,000.
In Indonesia, we had a peak in the number of publishers, 32,371. That represents a 3% increase over last year.
You get the point. No insight, no teaching, just the data that was cherry-picked for them to read out loud. They do that for like a dozen countries before called Millhouse comes back with this little gem.
These are just a few highlights from the 2025 Service Year Report. It's evidence of Jehovah's rich blessing.
And what exactly would be evidence of the lack of Jehovah's blessing? I'm serious, to any Jehovah's Witness watching. If Jehovah's hand was no longer guiding this religion, how would you know? If they're growing at the exact same rate as the rest of the population, and that's considered Jehovah's blessing, then how would the numbers look like without Jehovah's blessing?
Brothers and sisters, please know that we love you all very much and keep you in our prayers.
Those were the highlights, and if that's how the best numbers look like, then you bet I cannot wait for the full Service Year Report to come out already to analyze and see what the bad numbers look like. So subscribe if you don't want to miss that analysis, and maybe even support me like these guys over here. They all have access to a free STL to print Sparlock if that's something you'd like for the holidays.